A very good day to all of you out there. This is admav here with another episode of admav's Corner. And welcome. You are very welcome here. This is a safe space to talk about whatever, you know, whatever's on your mind, whatever's on my mind. Um, Forgive the lack of coherency and the lack of direction and potentially the lack of succinctness to this podcast, as I've never done a solo podcast before, so I kind of have to navigate through my thoughts here and express them in real time through vocalization. It's a lot more daunting than it seems. Okay, let's just pick something to riff about right off the start. How about some discussions on self care? It's something that I only learned to really accept recently, and I recently only learned how important that is to your overall well being. And it's just as key to your well being as your physiological health, and it's a part of your mental health. And, you know, the ability to care for yourself isn't necessarily a given. It's not something that everyone knows, even though intuitively people feel like they know how to do it. Yeah, you can feed yourself, you can work so you can give yourself a home, but what does self care truly mean? What does caring for yourself, what does loving for yourself truly mean? That's something that I feel isn't really discussed in detail, especially among friends. And for some of you, maybe that doesn't hold true. Maybe the experience is different, and that's well and good for you. And I'm happy that you're able to do that. But in my experience within my own group of friends, it's not something that's commonly discussed. And I've been a part of this group of friends. I've been very blessed and very lucky to still be friends with everyone that I know, basically from elementary school. Some I met in high school, but the fact that almost 2 decades later, nearly 2 decades later, very nearly. I mean, next year it'll be 20 years. Um, I'm very grateful that we're still together to this day. It takes effort. It doesn't just happen, and you have to, put an effort to make sure that everyone is still in contact and that everyone's caught up with each other. And but I digress. We're talking about self care here, and like I was saying, it's not something that's commonly discussed amongst uh, your social circles, whether it's your friends and even sometimes your family. But to be able to care for oneself is really vital. And it's not just about feeding yourself and giving yourself shelter, being able to do that for yourself independently. And, you know, those are amazing things. And for you to be able to do that is already massive. But it goes beyond that, really, because some people are able to sustain themselves, they can feed themselves, they can shelter themselves, but they may very well not be doing too good at the same time. And maybe that's because of a lack of self-care, lack of self, acceptance, lack of self-love. I'm going to jump into an example here with myself, in that for many years I have been, a huge self-blamer, self-loather, chronic negative self-talker. You know, it's been very tough. No one's bullied me or abused me as much as I have to my own self, and I didn't realize till about a year earlier how damaging that truly is to you, to your psyche, how you perceive life, how you perceive yourself. It really is very limiting, very belittling, and it's just like I said, it's just straight up abuse. You're abusing yourself when you think about it that way. I'm just that type of person, though. I have a tendency to take blame whenever I'm involved in something that or something where something undesirable happens. If I feel like it makes sense, I jump right in and I take the blame. And it's not the most conducive thing to your health, because yes, responsibility is important, and you need to know when you have to take responsibility and when you have to take the blame for something. There are times where you have to own up to things, and you have to have the ability to do that to be a decent person in this world. But sometimes, because of your own personal habits and how you perceive yourself, sometimes you take the blame unnecessarily, and then you further inflict damage on yourself by talking negatively internally towards yourself. And in my case, sometimes I do it verbally. I say it out loud. Sometimes I say, fuck my life, or fuck me, or of course this is happening to me because it's fucking me, right? But those are all negative things, and those actually, believe it or not, heavily contribute to how you perceive yourself and how you feel about yourself. And it's not good, because if you're friends with somebody, even though you're being critical of them, even though you want to, be a little bit upfront and truthful about something that they need to sort of deal with or confront, you wouldn't tell them, fuck your life, or of course it's you, because it's you, it's fucking you, so of course it's your fault. Of course this is on you. No, you try to be, honest, you try to be upfront, but at the same time you want to be more thoughtful and more sensitive of how they're feeling and what they're going through right now, because they're already doing that to themselves, and for you to pile on and add on, that doesn't help. And if you're a good friend and you want to be a good friend to somebody, you usually use a bit of tact, and you express it the best way that you can, so that they understand what they need to do or what they need to think about. Or maybe it's not even that. Maybe you just want them to feel like there's somebody there to lean on during a difficult time, instead of blaming them or being hard on them. So if you can do that for a friend, if you want to do that for a friend, and I'm assuming most of you do, most of your instincts is to treat a friend with respect, even though you want to be, honest and upfront about letting them know something. It's not that you want to be gentle, but you want to just be thoughtful and considerate of your approach. You have to try to cultivate that within yourself, so that you're able to do that very thing, but you turn it inwards. You aim it inwards towards yourself, because that's what self-care is. Being able to treat yourself as if you were a friend or a family member that you love. And like I was saying at the beginning of this riff, that is not a given. It really isn't. And it's not something that's taught. It's something that's thrown around often, might I add. People say it a lot. It's like a platitude, right? Love yourself. Self-care, self-love. But what does that truly mean? It's just sound bites. It's just things that you read. It's just quotes that you see shared and reposted over social media. And it's really hard to grasp that concept until you actually start to feel it and to get it, To be able to love yourself, to be able to talk to yourself and be kind to yourself and say, hey, you made a mistake, or hey, you're going through a rough time, and it's okay. Life, just by its very nature, is unpredictable, and challenges always arise. But it's not only challenges. It's not only dark times. Though those are a part of it, there's also the other side of things, where things are hopeful. You're able to hang on. You're able to endure. You're able to experience some kind of joy, or some kind of contentment, or some kind of purpose. These are the two sides to life. And I know it's a lot easier to say, and it's one of those things, again, that when you hear it, it makes sense. But that really is how life tends to be. There's usually, a negative and a positive, and it's full of gray areas, where you're not quite sure how to handle things or how to think about things. And that's just the challenge that we humans face living in this earth or on this earth. And if you want to do the best that you can, you want to help people out because it's in your nature, like me, I tend to want to go towards harmony, and I like to listen to both sides whenever, two people are in disagreement, especially if it's my friends. I try to listen to both sides, even though sometimes I get impassioned about things. I try to approach things with a balanced sense. But I'm not perfect, and I know that. I just do my best, and I try to stick to myself. I try to stick to being myself as best as I can, and that's hard sometimes when you're with other people. As of course, the way we let the world know who we are sometimes changes based on the people that we're around. But before I digress further, the reason why I brought that up is because your ability to care for and love yourself will only enhance your ability to care for and love others. Because if you treat yourself right, then you have the ability to treat others right and to be around other people the right way. Yes, I understand that sometimes you have that care and that love for other people and you feel like you have an abundance of it and it just comes natural to you, because that's how I feel. That's how I've been. I truly feel that that's, whatever you want to call it, the gift that the universe gave me or God gave me, whatever you want to call it, or just something that I've, for some reason or another, cultivated throughout my life. I care about relationships. I care about people, and I like to nurture, and that's what I like to do. And I've done that for so long, but for a long time, I wasn't able to sort of apply that same thought process, that same attitude towards my own self. And that did eventually become an issue because I realized that I was giving that to others because, and this isn't entirely the reason, but it is a big reason why. And that's because I wish that was how someone could have treated me growing up. You know? And that's a difficult thing to wrap your head around. Because it's like, sometimes you feel so selfless and you want to do something good for somebody. And you don't really expect anything. But then you sometimes wish that someone would do that for you. And when no one does it, that's when resentment gets introduced into the picture. And that's when you start to feel feelings of resentment. Or at least I did a little bit. And then that made me feel worse because I started thinking, wow, I'm an awful person. I've only been doing these things, these good things, because I'm looking for it in return. But then I realized, no, this is truly what I want. But because I don't get it myself, I feel bad. But it's not because of my friends. I don't blame my friends or my family. It's really just anger towards myself because I wasn't able to do that for myself. And because of recent things that have been happening in my life that I'm not going to delve into in this episode, I've been able to truly understand and accept what it means to love myself. And I've been more forgiving. And before I wrap up this, whatever you want to call it, this riff or rant, I do want to say one thing that I hope can help people listening to this who are going through the same thing, who are maybe depressed or anxious or having other mental health issues and are just going through a tough time right now and are unable to think of themselves in a positive light. And listen, this might sound silly, but trust me on this. if there's anything I can do to help anyone going through any of that, I would love to be able to do that, because I understand how it feels, and just how difficult it is to navigate through and to endure. So here it is. Talk to yourself. And I'm not just saying talk to yourself internally. Talk to yourself out loud. Vocalize, verbalize these thoughts. Even in third person, whatever works for you. Just talk to yourself as if you're talking to one of your best friends and one of your close friends. The next time you talk shit about yourself, the next time you put yourself down, do your best to call yourself out and say, hey, that's not very nice. You shouldn't say that. You shouldn't say that about yourself, man. Don't bring yourself down. You don't deserve that. Sure, you have things that you need to work on, but so does everyone else. That doesn't make you any worse of a person. That doesn't make you unfixable. You just need time and patience. It's okay. And yeah, that's just an example, but if you do that enough times, and I know at first it feels silly to talk to yourself in that manner, the more times you do it, the less you'll care about how silly it feels. And you do this over and over again until it becomes a week, until that week turns into a month, until the months accumulate, until the months turn into a year, and then all of a sudden, your perspective will start to shift because you catch yourself being a little bit, just at least a little bit more positive, and that's a victory in itself. And it's easier said than done, I know. And a lot of people will still end up needing professional help, therapist, or medication. And that's okay too. It's all part of your wellness, and for some people, their recovery, to rediscovering themselves, to accept themselves, because so many people go through this life thinking that they know themselves or that they're okay with being who they are, but in reality, they haven't truly accepted who they are as a person and what they're doing here, what they bring to the world. And being able to care for yourself and love yourself is a major and important step into being able to do that. And to living, I'm not going to say happy, because happy is, temperamental. It never stays. You experience happiness, you experience joy, but it's not something that you constantly are. Maybe for some people, never say never, there's always exceptions, but in general, there's an ebb and flow to things. And at least for me, because I experience depression, and I'm just an anxious person in general, and I deal with panic attacks, which I can expand on in future episodes. But my point is, even though you go through those ebbs and flows in life where you're happier or a little bit more down, you'll still feel okay, because at the end of the day, you know who you are. And at the end of the day, you know you care for yourself and that you love yourself. And that you're genuine to who you are. And you being able to do that, just that, brings light and hope into the world. I know it sounds cheesy, but it's true. You are important. You bring something of value by being here. So I want you to leave this podcast or whatever this conversation is. I want you to leave really just thinking about that. The way you think and the way you perceive yourself, the way you perceive the world, doesn't need to necessarily immediately change just because of this short 20-ish minute rant from a young middle-aged guy. But at least think about it and just really reflect on where you are. You matter. You're important. And you have good in you.